Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here from Kansas State University's College of Veterinary Medicine. We have a great show lined up today. Dr. Matt Meisner from the Veterinary Health Center in the Ag Praxis section will be talking to us today about ringworm in cattle. We're going to talk about what ringworm is, how to treat it, and some of the things that go along with it, such as checking in at the fair. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back right after these messages.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff Progress, powered by Kansas farmers. This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
Matt, welcome to the show.
Always happy to be here.
Well, folks, this is Dr. Matt Meisner. Matt is a boarded veterinarian that's boarded in internal medicine for food animals and food and fiber animals, and teaches here at Kansas State University's College of Veterinary Medicine. He's in the clinics, he's seeing cases, you're teaching students, and you see everything. You see walk-in cases and you see referral cases.
Right, everything from common to the weird stuff, and sometimes working through those can be difficult.
And today we're going to talk about something that's extremely common, and that's ringworm.
Sure. Very common and a nemesis for a lot of people in multiple ways. And it's one of those, ringworm is one of those unfortunate common diseases that are, have a misleading name in that it's not a worm
right.
that causes the infection. It's actually a fungal type organism, and there's multiple types. So every species has their own type, usually from cats to dogs to horses to cattle and even small ruminants. So they all have their own type of this fungus that affects them. They can cross a little bit, but for the most part, they're specific to this species.
And as I'd mentioned before, I can still remember a young lady coming into the clinic, and she had a kitten that had a ringworm infection, and she said, "The husband says there's a fungus among us." And I said, "Yeah, it's not just on the kitten. It was tracking all the way up her arm."
Right.
So getting the kids away from those animals and your spouse and getting a definite diagnosis is important.
Sure. Yeah, so that cross species, not just between individual animal species we think of, but people as well. So that can be a zoonotic infection to some degree.
And one of the times that you and I see a lot of these cases is fair time.
Sure.
People wanting to get them cleared up and they can prevent an animal from being allowed to show, right?
Right. And so that's probably one of the common diseases that will get an animal turned around at the door. When we're checking in animals, that if we see ringworm, oftentimes it's something that can't come in, depends on the regulations, but it's animal-to-animal transmission, close contact, but also gets in the environment. So an infected animal that's rubbing on pins, posts, panels, can leave that for the next one to come by and then transmit it that way. So we worry some about that.
So it's not just an animal to animal, it's potential animal to people that are just enjoying the fair.
Sure, right. Yeah, I mean, and some of the food animal species less so to people, but it can be, so that's a risk as well. And so any fomite.
So highly contagious?
Highly contagious, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the clinical signs. Go ahead.
Well, one thing I was going to say, it's highly contagious, but usually it's the younger animals with the less of an immune system, or animals that it's contagious, but oftentimes we won't see every single animal spread through a herd, and there's some susceptibility there, but
right.
Still.
Why do we see these round patches?
Hair loss. So it's a fungus, it's on the skin, it affects those hair follicles, and we lose hair.
And it starts in the middle, and they
Yep, so the actual
blossom
active
out.
stuff is blossom on the edges.
I'll be dang.
Yeah, and those hair loss can mimic a lot of things, and so it's nice to know some clinical signs to try to get it confirmed as ringworm.
Well, let's take a break, and when we come back from the messages, we're going to talk more about ringworm with Dr. Meisner, and we're going to talk about clinical signs and diagnosis. You're watching DocTalk, and we're glad that you joined us.
This Meet the Future Veterinarian is brought to you by Zuprevo. Choose confidence. Choose Zuprevo for BRD treatment. Lauren Scruggs recently was awarded an AmStut Scholarship, the first Auburn University CVM student to receive it since 2008. Hardworking, intelligent, and compassionate, Lauren grew up in rural Mississippi surrounded by animals. Her dad is a veterinarian and her mom trained border collies. Looking towards the future, Lauren is particularly interested in the production animal industry.
I will take action against herbicide-resistant weeds. I will know my weeds, and I will stop them before they go to seed. I will do whatever it takes to give my crops the upper hand, and I will use multiple herbicide sites of action because every action counts. I will take action, this time for all time.
DocTalk, brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook, or visit us online at sftmeats.com.
Hey folks, welcome back to the show. Dr. Dan Thomson here with Dr. Matt Meisner, and we're at the College of Veterinary Medicine at Kansas State University, where Matt is a veterinarian over in the Ag Practice section in the Veterinary Health Center, and he is a boarded internal medicine specialist for food and fiber animals. Specifically today we're talking about ringworm in cattle, something that maybe is something that's extremely common and not something that we're going to get aborted.
Don't need an internist for this.
For this one, but maybe a dermatologist. But let's talk about, you know, the clinical signs of ringworm and kind of the timing and some of the diagnostics.
You know, it's one of those diseases we'll see oftentimes in young animals, and it has to do with immune recognition. So the more immature the immune system is, the more likely they are to come up with clinical signs and then have to fight it off. And the clinical signs are such that we'll see hair loss or patches of hair that loss, but also in cattle it'll look kind of crusty, and so you can kind of get a crust around the face, the eyes, the head, and probably one of the most common confusions between ringworm and another disease, which would be kind of warts, where we'll see also, you know, we'll see papilloma type things, but they look kind of crusty. They can look pretty similar, but crusty lesions or hair loss lesions, oftentimes the face, head, neck is the most common places that we'll see them right off the bat.
Well, some of the times these can be pretty aggressive.
Right.
I mean, you can see, you know, almost like a scaling of the and a keratosis type of lesions around the head and neck, and the warts can be pretty aggressive too.
Sure. I mean, it can just go from one small spot to just full blown in an instant, and that has to do a lot with the animal's individual immune system. And so if they're fighting something else, maybe early on they were a little bit deprived of
because I see some of them that just have the focal pinpoint lesions, and then some of them that just
spreads across. And so one of those other differentials would be lice or mites or mange, you know, those other things. Maybe that's what it is, but ringworm looks a lot like all those, and so but then we'd get into trying to diagnose it and try to figure out which one it is.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that, because I think that's one of the things that, you know, a lot of times a producer walks out there and goes, well, it's got ringworm.
Right.
But we got to get a diagnosis, get a veterinarian out there, get a diagnosis so you treat it properly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, we try to do various cultures. The thing about some of the cattle versions of ringworm are a little harder to grow. You know, we can take a special media, we can put these kind of in these medias to try to grow these ringworm kind of things. A lot of times the diagnosis of ringworm is being sure that we can rule out some of these other things as well. So biopsy's probably not going to get that extensive in most cases, but more oftentimes it's actually trying to get just a culture from the hairs. And if we think we've got lice or mites, we should be able to see those as well. Warts are kind of their own thing, but trying to rule out a bunch of other things kind of helps us be sure that that's what it is, and then can lead to some various therapies that we might go with.
Any time of the year?
Yeah, it seems to be a lot of times more in the moist, damp times of year, less sunlight. You know, one of the things that helps get rid of it is drying it out. UV light, those kind of things help with that. So we do see it a little bit more when you've got some humidity.
Cool.
And go from there.
Well, let's take a break. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk more about ringworm and how to treat it with Dr. Matt Meisner.
Broadband has become as important to us as highways. That is why DocTalk is teaming up with NTCA, the Rural Broadband Association, and rural broadband companies like Blue Valley Telecommunications in fighting for quality broadband access through the program Smart Rural Communities.
I don't think we have any idea what's coming in the future. I couldn't have imagined 5 years ago what we're doing today. So in 2 years, I would guess there's things we can't imagine that we're going to be doing.
To learn more, visit ntca.org/smart or bluevalley.net.
This hog is Hanover hoof for meal made from U.S. soybeans. Now, one hog isn't that impressive, but suppose we add another, and another, and another. Before long, you've got billions of hungry customers around the world all clamoring for the same thing. Our soybeans. Learn more about the billion-dollar appetite of animal agriculture at BeyondTheElevator.com. Brought to you by America's soybean farmers and their checkoff.
I'm Dr. Frank Lyons, a physician here at Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. As one of the only standalone stem cell centers in the U.S., we use your stem cells as therapy for arthritis and some autoimmune diseases.
I'm Dr. Andrew Pope, here at Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. Utilizing the latest technology under strict protocols, we're able to harvest your stem cells from your own fat to treat a variety of medical conditions. The best part about it is, it's a same-day surgical procedure and requires no general anesthesia.
It's time, the Great Bend Farm and Ranch Expo, April 8th, 9th, and 10th in Great Bend, Kansas. See Scott Daly Horse Training all 3 days, sponsored by Beck Sunglasses. Gen X Shoot Side Demo, Friday the 10th at 1. Cutting Edge Technology for Farming Forums all 3 days, sponsored by American State Bank. Free admission, free parking. That's the Great Bend Farm and Ranch Expo, April 8th, 9th, and 10th. Go to Star Expos for more details. Corporate sponsors American Hat Company, Great Bend Co-op, and KSN.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
ValleyVet.com, ValleyVet.com, Valley Vet Supply.
DocTalk, brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson, and with me today is a friend and colleague, Dr. Matt Meisner, who is a boarded internal medicine specialist over in the Ag Practices section here in the Veterinary Health Center at Kansas State University's College of Veterinary Medicine. And we're talking about the common thing of ringworm in cattle. And Matt, you've done a great job of talking to us about it being a fungus, about how contagious this is, and how to get a proper diagnosis. And we always want to recommend to our folks out there to work with their local veterinarian. Now let's get into some of the treatments, because everybody out there that has a show calf is now grabbing a hold of the side of their TV saying, I want to know this year if we get ringworm, I'm not going to be held out.
Give me a cure, right?
Right.
And when you've got the number of treatments that have been proposed for treating ringworm out there, it's more than you can shake a stick at, right? So this is where I really encourage you to work with your local veterinarian, because different areas of the country and different veterinarians have things that work for them. And oftentimes we're trying to reduce the length of time that you're having problems with it. But there's various topical things that work that we try. Like we mentioned earlier, it's nice to get them out in the sun, get it to dry out, get some UV light on it. topical soaps, scrubs, iodines, things that aren't necessarily going to, create another problem for showing cattle, meaning, stains and colors. We've talked about topical copper tox, which is a copper sulfate, but turns them green, so that doesn't really help out a lot. Alcohols, things that can happen. Then you get into some of the systemic drugs. There is a drug called greaseafulvin. Oftentimes it's cost prohibitive in most cases, and then it also has to be produced in a legal manner today. And to be compounded, it has to go through a set flow to get that drug approved and then to put it into cattle. And that's something that your veterinarian can help you out with as well, but it's expensive.
What about the withdrawal on those?
And then
it can be extended?
Can be extended, and there's some documentation out there or places that we can call to get the current recommendations for withdrawal times as well on that. But sometimes this kind of goes really wild, and so we talk about more of those systemic drugs, and we get it approved. We can make sure it's going to be absorbed, and we get it the right way.
And I think it's important that when y'all are looking at treatments, I understand that we want to get these animals into the show, and when we start to talk about some of these types of treatments, I'm almost always, we're talking about a show animal that we're trying to get ready. But what we're showing to the public and what we're representing to the public is important that we follow the rules and that we do the things that are right.
Right, exactly.
Anything else on treatment?
Well, like I say, topicals are pretty safe. But and there's, like I say, there's just so many that I've heard out there, and some are actually on the illegal side, which you're talking about chemicals and various solvents that may not be exactly approved, and that kind of goes with the animal health.
Yep. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk with Dr. Meisner about how long it takes for these lesions to resolve. We'll talk a little bit more about ringworm, and we'll wrap up the show. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you more right after the break.
The BQA Tip of the Day, sponsored by Beringer Engelheim Vetmedica, Inc.
I'm Dr. Nels Lindberg with Animal Medical Center and Production Animal Consultation, and for today's tip, we're going to be talking about needle selection. It's very important that we think about that when we get ready to vaccinate cattle. We only want to use 5/8 or 3/4 inch needles on sub-Q shots and inch or inch and a half needles on intermuscular shots. We want to go sub-Q as often as we can, and so again, we'll use the 5/8 inch needles and 3/8 inch needles with a preference for the 5/8 needle. 16 gauge, even 18 gauge if we need to. On smaller calves, we can go 18 gauge.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Healthy cows start with the new hired hand automatic livestock sprayer. Rancher invented to provide an efficient alternative to pour-on and injectable parasite management systems. The portable design allows cattle to treat themselves head to hoof. Strategic device placement with pass-through activation technology takes the stress out of parasite treatment for cattle and the rancher, leaving more time to tend to other vital tasks on the farm. To learn more, visit cowsprayer.com. The new hired hand makes healthy cows easy.
Tarwater Farm and Home is a nearly 40-year-old local family-owned business. Clothing for work and play, seeds and feeds, boots, toys for the kids, the tools you need for around the home and farm, and a service department to keep them in top running order. It's a big store, so when you have some time, take some time to see what they have for your farm and home. Tarwater's everyday pricing is like others' sale prices. When you need it, they've got it. Tarwater Farm and Home, 4107 North Topeka Boulevard.
Buying a car shouldn't be this hard. And at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego, it isn't. It's actually awesome. Whether you want a new or used car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. Even if you want to custom order a new car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal.
See Toby's team at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're awesome.
This is the fast track to more jobs and America's energy independence. Advanced performance is here now. Biodiesel, America's advanced biofuel.
When your living depends on agriculture, you can depend on KFRM 550 AM. If you're in the southwest three-fourths of Kansas or the northern half of Oklahoma, catch us at 550 AM on the radio dial. But if that isn't you, listen on your cell phone at TuneIn Radio or on your computer at KFRM.com. We promise to keep you informed, entertained, and company as you go through your day. KFRM 550 AM, the voice of the plains. We would like to join your management team.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or for more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here with Dr. Matt Meisner. We're from Kansas State University's College of Veterinary Medicine, where Dr. Meisner is a boarded internal medicine specialist for food and fiber animals and a veterinarian, doing a lot of teaching, research, clinical service here at K-State, and we're glad to have him on the show talking about ringworm. And when we talk about ringworm, you know, the one thing is okay, Doc, I got the cow in here, got ringworm, the show's next week, we got to get rid of this.
Right, tough, right? So tough. And most of the time it's going to take them, 3 to 4 weeks to kind of get it under control before you can really get it stopped, and sometimes it takes months, 2 to 4 months. And so I think a lot of times we're trying to stop each individual lesion, so I would recommend kind of getting some of those topical soaps or iodines to try to get it shut down at the source. And it's starting to resolve when you start to see hair kind of come back into that area, kind of stubs of hair, especially around the edges. But it's nice to be vigilant about observing these things early on, because when you get down to a week or so before the show, you're going to have a hard time getting it shut down.
Is there anything that you can put down in the environment, as far as if you're going to have show cattle in there next year, and is there anything we can do? Because I know, like in my garden, I'm just going to use the example of like the fungus on my tomatoes. I just can't plant tomatoes there anymore, right? Because it comes right back every year.
Comes back every year. Yeah, and it's hard. It hides in nooks and crannies, and it can be an issue. Topical dilute bleaches and those kind of environmental treatments can be effective to reduce the overall concentration of it. And so it's good to keep things clean, and it's just general cleaning would be the big thing on keeping it, limiting it in the herd. So those would be things to kind of look at.
So we got about a minute left here. Let's go through our kind of your checklist on ringworm.
Right. So not a worm, it's a fungus. It's one of those that affects the hair in a similar manner to lice, mites, warts. Can look crusty, so we try to recognize it early on. Usually affects the younger animals a little bit earlier on, and has to do more with the immune system. And then treatments, they vary. When we look at the treatment, time to cure with the treatment, it's usually pretty similar to when it was going to resolve anyway, that 1 to 4 months. But it's not wrong to treat to try to limit some of that concentration of the fungus from spreading, so I think that's a good thing. Then there's some legal and less than desirable treatments that we can do, but in the end I still think, talk to your local vet and see what works in that area, because there's various species of it, and go from there.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on the show today.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for watching DocTalk. Remember, if you want to know more about what Dr. Meisner and I do here at Kansas State University, you can find us on the web at www.vet.ksu.edu. Remember, always work with your local veterinarian. Thanks for watching DocTalk today. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson, and I'll see you down the road.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission.
The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.